Jai Shri Radhe. So Vaishnav Jai Shri Krishna. Continuing with the reading of the 252 Vaishnava stories, the disciples of Sri Gosaiji. Today is day 60 and Varta 38 is continuing the story of the Brahmini who came to stay at Krishna Bhatt's house. Part 1 continued. For the whole of the length of his stay, she served him in every way that she could. She requested Krishna Bhatt to ask him on her behalf if she might receive the Brahmasambandha initiation. He relayed this to Sri Gosaiji, who, recognizing that her heart was very pure, agreed, and he initiated her the next day. That Brahmini developed love for the Lord through the auspices of Krishna Bhatt. She then asked Sri Gosaiji to present her with some seva, and he complied, giving her one of Srinathji's prasadi garments to serve. Sri Gosaiji then left for Gokul. Krishna Bhatt then brought her a deity of Srinathji to wear that garment. Taking her seva with her, that Brahmini lady returned to her village. She began to make very nice seva in her home, according to Sri Krishna Bhatt's instructions. She served very lovingly. Many days thus passed. Srinathji began to let her experience him directly. Accordingly, her seva also improved, and then he began to speak with her, asking her for whatever he wanted. Whilst she was making seva, he granted her many kinds of divine experiences, so her seva to him also became even more loving and absorbing. Whatever he asked her for, she would provide. If she had it at home, she would offer it to him immediately, and whatever she did not have, she would, after completing the morning seva and partaking of prasad, go to Ujjain to fetch and then offer that to him in the afternoon, Uttapan seva time. She would say, "O Maharaj, here is the thing you wished for," and he would happily accept it. She continued to serve the Lord in this way for many, many years. She would also meet with Krishna Bhatt very regularly. Sometimes even his Sri Thakurji would ask her to get things for him. 3 hours before dawn, she would take that item to Krishna Bhatt's house and then return home and begin her seva early in the morning. Sri Thakurji granted her many divine experiences, and Krishna Bhatt had the utmost respect for her and looked after her. One Vaishnav named Nihal Chand, however, said to her, "Be careful, you have received such a valuable great gift from Sri Gosaiji, and you should therefore serve the Lord with great care." He would always warn her in this way, and she, taking it as good instruction, continued to serve Sri Thakurji very lovingly. After some time, one day Krishna Bhatt mentioned her to Nihal Chand. He said to him, "Oh Bhattji, that lady has been granted something hugely important. However, she is a small vessel, and if she manages to contain it, then she will be truly worthy." He would repeat this to Krishna Bhatt from time to time. Krishna Das would hear it, but never reply. Many days passed. One day, a government surveyor came to measure the land in that village in order to exact taxes from it. He made his camp near the Brahmini's home. One day he was passing her house where she was cleaning rice, and he saw her. He said, "Oh dear lady, for whom are you cleaning this rice? You have been cleaning it very carefully for such a long time." She replied, "Sri Thakurji resides in my house and I serve him. I am cleaning the rice for him." Then he requested her to let him see her Sri Thakurji, and she let him do so. He then went off to do his work of measuring ground. That Brahmini had a lot of land. The caretaker of her land told the surveyor that it belonged to her. He then added a small measure to her land. When he returned after his measuring work, he said to her, "Oh dear lady, when I found out that it was your land, I added some into the measurements as a favour to you." Bhav Prakash, this is the way of worldly people. They tell others of the favours they do to show off. An accomplished Vaishnava never announces the favours they do to anybody, so the surveyor had spoken to the Brahmini in that way. Part 1 continued. The Brahmini replied to him, "O my son, you have given me a new lease of life." At that very moment, Sri Thakurji left her house and returned to Sri Gosaiji. Bhav Prakash. Why? Because her speech betrayed her shelter in the Lord. She accepted a material favour from someone of a different faith and attitude. Vaishnavas should be very careful of how they speak. One should not debate with those from a different path and always think before they speak, but never accept any type of favour and thus become obligated. One should also not display one's Sri Thakurji in front of someone from a different path. Part 1 continued. As he was leaving, that Sri Thakurji said to Krishna Bhatt, "That Brahmini is guilty of taking shelter in someone other than me." Therefore, I am returning to Sri Gosaiji's home. Having thus informed Krishna Bhatt, Sri Thakurji went to Nihal Chand's house. When he arrived, Nihal Chand was taking a nap after having his prasad. So Sri Thakurji appeared in Nihal Chand's dream that he was there, and Nihal Chand quickly sat up. He got dressed and went to Krishna Bhatt's house to tell him Sri Thakurji has left the Brahmini's house, and he told me that he would no longer reside with her. Sri Thakurji told me that she had betrayed his refuge, and so he was going back to Gokul. Krishna Bhatt replied to him, Sri Thakurji did indeed tell me this as he was leaving. Nihal Chand added, this is why I was telling you that although she had received such a blessed gift, she is still a small vessel, and that it would remain to be seen if she could contain it. Hearing these words of Nihal Chand, Krishna Bhatt stayed silent. About 2 hours later, the Brahmini bathed and opened the doors to her Sri Thakurji's temple to make the afternoon seva. She saw that Sri Thakurji was not there. Everything else was as she had left it. He was not in his place. But he was not in his place. She was very upset and cried profusely. In this devastated mood, she reached Krishna Bhatt's home in Ujjain. Krishna Bhatt and Nihal Chand were both sitting there. She cried and lamented as she told him what was up. He said to her, O Brahmini, our Sri Thakurji must not be an object of business or bargaining or displayed to people, such as the surveyor, etc. If such persons think of Vaishnavas as being like this, to be favoured, then their Vaishnava status just gets sold. Now Sri Thakurji definitely does not wish you to serve him. You must now do as your heart guides you. The Brahmini had nothing to say. She felt defeated and went home. It is extremely important, therefore, for a Vaishnava never to take shelter to any degree whatsoever in anyone or anything other than Sri Thakurji. A Vaishnava must always guard against this offence. Srinaji left her and went to Sri Gosaiji in Gokul. Srinaji told Sri Gosaiji the whole story about the Brahmini, and Sri Gosaiji was silent when he heard his words. In this way, the result of taking refuge elsewhere has been shown. Bhav Prakash. Sri Gosaiji has written in his Bhakti Hetu Nirnay treatise, even the remotest whiff of relationship with another is like tying a rope around one's neck. Therefore, a Vaishnava must always be careful to avoid this, and thus concludes Varta 38, the story of the Brahmini who was a recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava. There is really no end to her story. So we conclude the reading here. And tomorrow we will continue with Varta 39. So, Sab Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna. Shri Gosaiji ki Jai ho. Shri Vallabhadish ki Jai 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 Shri Radhe.